All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for our Sharing Your Name and Story session during the WashU's Applying to College Week. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Indigenous culture of Missouri. Washington University and the city of St. Louis are located on the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Osage Nation, Missouri, and the Illini Confederacy. We honor them as we live, work, and study at WashU. My name is Elena, and I am an admissions officer here at WashU, and I'll be one of your presenters and moderators for the day. But I am joined by one of my colleagues who will let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jocelyn. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the admission officers here at WashU. Excited that you guys are joining us today.
This is our third session of the Applying to College Week. As a reminder, we'll finish out the week with our Ask Us Anything admissions officer panel tomorrow. I'll be sure to drop the link for that session into chat later during the session. So if you haven't signed up and want to join us, feel free to register and join us tomorrow. We also encourage you to follow us on Instagram. We'll be sharing more information about applying to college and applying to WashU specifically through our WashU admissions Instagram. As with all of our theme weeks this summer, we will be recording this session and posting it on our website, as well as other recordings from this week. So if you miss anything they were talking about or want to rewatch, know that you can always rewatch them after this session. Throughout the session, we will be using the Q&A feature. So if you have questions about anything we're talking about, feel free to use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. I do want to say that we have over 300 students currently on the call. So we will do our best to get to as many questions as we can, but know that we may not be able to get to all questions this evening. You can always reach out to us at admissions@wustl.edu. Shoot us an email. We'll be sure to get back to you as soon as we can with answers or resources or additional information. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and share our screen and get started.
All right, so this is the session on sharing your name and story. We've got some information and context that we hope is going to be helpful for you all to apply to your application process and your research and how you're preparing to navigate the college process. So to kind of kick us off, we want to kind of frame this context of like, what do we mean by name and story? So for those of you who don't know yet, our informal motto at WashU is to get to know students by both name and story, and that extends to our admission office and our philosophy for how we recruit prospective students. We at WashU are really seeking to build a well-rounded community through a holistic admission process. And for those of you who have maybe heard this term before and are wanting to know a little bit more about what it means, holistic admissions means that we are considering both the quantitative and qualitative aspects of your application. So we're not just focusing on those quantitative pieces, that is, the GPA or your transcript, standardized test scores, if you choose to submit them. We're also wanting to get to know who you are as a person. We get to know that through the more qualitative aspects of your application, such as your essays, your letters of recommendation, your activities and involvements, an interview if you choose to complete one of those, and different aspects that are unique to our process as well as just in general. So these tips are meant to help you navigate the application process for WashU, as well as you might be able to apply some of this advice to just your college process in general. So in terms of sharing your story, we really want to get to know who you are as a person beyond some of those quantitative aspects of your application. We want to know more about who you are as a person, what matters to you, what has shaped you as a person, how did you become the person that you are today, and how have you been contributing to the communities that you're a part of, and how might you contribute to WashU, our community here, and the broader world in general. Ultimately, it is that aspect of your story that is going to help you to stand out and to differentiate yourself from students who might have a similar background or kind of quantitative aspect of your application. And it's so important to us in terms of getting to know you by both name and story in terms of our philosophy here at WashU and our admission office.
Yeah, and I have to say, Jocelyn, my favorite thing about our process is that context is the way we get to understand students outside of kind of academics. It really makes it a really exciting process to get to know you in this journey that we have with you starting, now all the way through the application process. And so that name and story piece, like Jocelyn was saying, is such an exciting thing for us. It's why we do what we do, right? Is to get to know you as a little bit bigger than just kind of an academic transcript. So one of the ways that you can share your story in your application is through your essays. And really these essays are the main space where you can show off your authentic voice, your unique style, your personality. Here at WashU, we have a couple of different essays that you may consider when you're writing your application for WashU. The first is the personal narrative that is part of the Common application, the Coalition application. There's longer personal essays as part of the QuestBridge application. And that is really that longer space, right? It's about 600, 650 words. So you have more time, more space to tell us a little bit about yourself or a specific time or example or thing you're passionate about. So you really have a longer amount of space. Here at WashU, we also have a shorter essay question that is part of our college specific section that students write. And that is more looking at your academic interests. So after you choose a division of interest and the potential academic area of interest, you'll also then write a why do you want to study what you want to study? And that helps us get a sense of you as an academic, right? So besides the other things you write about in your other main essay, we then need to hear about your passions for academics, your intellectual curiosities there. Here at WashU, we also have an optional supplemental essay section, and this is for students who want to be considered for our signature scholar programs. And so there are additional short essays and short answers as part of that for each of the scholarship programs you want to be considered for. So just wanted to give you kind of a brief overview of the types of essays that may be included in your application. Those signature scholar applications are optional. So really the main ones that we're going to be looking for most of our students is going to be that personal essay and then that short academic answer as well. In addition to kind of showing off your personality and voice, the essays also help highlight how you may contribute to our campus. When you're thinking about your essays and what you're writing about, think also about what are we getting out of you from this essay? Are we learning that you're curious or creative or innovative or family-minded? What sorts of things are we learning about you in this process? And how does that help us then understand how you're going to contribute on our campus, right? If you write about how much you love making paper airplanes, maybe we can see how you might be a minor in aerospace engineering on our campus, or maybe you write about how important family is to you. We know that you might be a really great member of a supportive, family and community here. So there's no specific topic that we're looking for when it comes to essays. That's often a question that we get. Is there a good essay topic or a bad essay topic? And the reality is the best essay topic is the one that tells the most about you. So pick things that feel special to you, that feel impactful to you, in ways that you can really highlight kind of who you are on our campus. The third thing that I want to note about the essays is that they should complement the rest of your application. And your application can really be seen as a puzzle, and the essays being that one piece that you want to add on that maybe isn't included in your activities section or isn't included in your academic transcript. It can be the place for you to expand upon something you may have mentioned earlier, but it should never repeat an exact story or an exact example that you've already mentioned. This is really a space for you to kind of grow that story or tell us something completely different. If the adjectives that we're learning about you throughout your application are consistent, that's okay. So if you're writing about how supportive you are in one essay, then you happen to mention that in a different essay, that's okay. But really think about how these essays can complement the rest of your application.
Another piece of your application might be an interview. So some schools will have the opportunity to do an interview. For some schools and programs, it might be required for a scholarship program or specific opportunity. Some might be optional. Some you might have to actually request that you get information about an interview. So you want to make sure you're taking into consideration for each of the schools on your list what their policies are regarding interviews. For WashU, we offer 2 opportunities for students to do an interview. It's optional in our admission process, so it's not a required opportunity. We've got opportunities for students to do an interview with a current student. We also have opportunities for students to request an interview from an alumni, somebody who has graduated from WashU. And these opportunities are just a great opportunity to speak with somebody from the WashU community and connect with them on an individual level, for you to be able to have another kind of point of contact and connection to share more about who you are as a person and elements of your personal life and your goals and your ambitions and what you see yourself accomplishing in college and at WashU. with somebody who can then, put a face to a name on your application and really just attest to why you would be a good fit for our community here at WashU. And so each university might have a different kind of way that they do interviews. So it's definitely recommended to make sure you're doing the research for the schools on your list to see what the different processes are for each school. For WashU, we have more information on our website about how to sign up for those opportunities. And students can even start to sign up for those opportunities as early as right now. So if that is something that is interested to you, feel free to go to our website for more information. And if you've got questions coming in about interviews, feel free to put them in the chat and the Q&A.
The next thing that we want to highlight about the application process for WashU, but other schools have similar opportunities as well, is our optional 90-second video. So this can be done instead of an interview. It can be done in addition to an interview. It is also optional. So you do not need to do this 90-second video. But what it is exactly what it sounds like. You have the option on your application to also include a 90-second video through your WashU pathway, which is our online kind of portal system that you'll gain access to once you start submitting pieces of your application to WashU. And what the 90-second video is it's your chance to tell us more about yourself, to show us something else about your life, and really a casual way to introduce yourself. We added this last year and we really loved getting to see students in kind of your natural habitat, right? It does not need to be a highly produced or highly edited video. We had many students that just did it on their cell phones, right? Sitting in their room, talking to us about who they are or why they're interested in WashU, or sharing a little bit more about their interests or likes or dislikes, whatever it may be. The opportunity for you is there, so you can really choose how you want to use this. If you are somebody that wants to edit it and be a little bit produced, that's okay too. I think some students that have that like love of editing and love of creating movies may take it in one direction, but I will say most of our students do an unedited, very kind of basic raw video of just themselves talking or showing us around their house or showing us to their friends and family. It really is a fun way for us to get to see you kind of outside of your application, right? To kind of see you in person, even though we don't get to be with you in person. It also is a great space to be creative or have some fun. So if you see this opportunity and you get excited about it, you can do it. If you see this opportunity and think that sounds terrible to me, then don't worry about it. It is truly optional. I think some students really get excited about this and others feel like it may be not exactly how they want to share their story, and that's okay. But it can be a really fun way to kind of add that other dimension to your application.
And then every application platform that you may use, the Common App, the Coalition app, or the QuestBridge app, is going to have an opportunity for you to share your activities and involvement, commonly referenced to as the activity section. Colloquially, it might be referenced as like your college resume. That's the resume that your college applications are going to see. And these are just really a great opportunity for you to be able to share how you're spending your time beyond the classroom. It's a great opportunity for you to highlight any leadership, achievement, or how you've been committed to various activities. And in terms of how this has shifted in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, really want to emphasize that we're looking for quality over quantity. We understand that the pandemic has affected potentially, you being in physical school versus remote school. Students may have had to take on jobs full-time or part-time to support their families, maybe have had to take on extra family responsibilities of caring for younger siblings or elderly family members, or caring for family members who contracted COVID. So there's really now more than ever, there really always was no, right, perfect activities list of like, these are like these 10 checklist activities that colleges are looking for. But now more than ever, it's really, we just want to learn more about how you're spending your time when you're not in school. And so you can share, the formal activities that you have still had the opportunity to engage in, whether that, is some clubs, organizations at your school, or maybe with a religious affiliation or a job, maybe a summer program. But you could also share in this section maybe some informal activities that you've engaged in, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. If you've dedicated your time and energy to serving in your community, or just introspection and journaling, writing, noveling, podcast, creating a podcast. Maybe you took a class, you signed up for a class online at a local college. However you've been spending your time, just use this section to let us know. And a general piece of advice is just to check for consistent formatting in this section. So if you are using like, I did, such and such, you're like using a subject and a verb, or if you're just starting out with a verb and just kind of keeping it like more like bulleted, you can use the preview function on your application, whether you're using the Common App or the Coalition app, and it'll show you what the colleges will see when they're reading the application. It'll kind of give you this nice little preview where you can see how it's going to look and how colleges are going to actually receive this section. Definitely recommend using that to check for consistency. And then another tip is just to really, in this section, since you have so few characters in terms of how you usually have around 100 to 150 characters to describe your activities in the Common App and the Coalition app activity section. So you really want to make sure you're making the most of that space. I always recommend, it's helpful to see kind of students' descriptions where they're kind of letting us know like smart details about their activity involvement. That's like specific, measurable, if that's applicable, action oriented, and showing some results over time. Just kind of give us a context of how you have been involved and what the impact was for you, or maybe what the impact you've been able to achieve in that activity and involvement. And that's really helpful to us, because we just want to know how you've been spending your time and how you might contribute to our own campus community and the broader communities that we exist in a college campus.
Jocelyn, we often get questions about what to do if they want to expand outside of those 150 characters. What are your recommendations there?
Yeah, so there's a couple of options. The additional information section of the Common App and Coalition app brings a option for you to kind of incorporate any information that you would like to expand on. I think you have around 650 word limit in that section. So if there's maybe one or two activities that you'd like to expand on, you could do that. And then some colleges may give you the space to attach an actual copy of your resume. If there is, and that typically is found in like the member section of the questions for the colleges that you might be applying to. So here at WashU, we have the opportunity for students to attach a resume. It's optional, it's not required, but that could be another opportunity for students to attach something that is maybe less kind of constrictive in terms of the word count and the character count.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I will follow up and say that if you're somebody that wants to attach that optional resume, make sure that the most important parts of that resume are in your activity section of the application itself. We look first and foremost at that activities list. So if you're somebody that says, I have 14 activities that I want to list, but I can only list 10, you're welcome to put those other 4 in the additional info, like Jocelyn said, or in your optional resume. But make sure of those 14, your kind of most important to you are listed there in the activity section. And again, you do not need to have 10 activities. You can, but we see students all the time that have much fewer, 2 to 5 or whatever it is, one activity that you do very seriously. There is not a kind of number like Jocelyn was saying. It's definitely quality over quantity there. So just some takeaways from the things that we've been discussing today, and then we will open it up to general Q&A. So most of the session, as you'll see, is Q&A. So if you have questions about anything that we've talked about, we are happy to share our insight, share our advice on the different parts of the application that we discussed today. But want to just wrap up with some takeaways. I think the first is definitely treat your application like a puzzle and have the various sections as different pieces. Like I mentioned with the essay in the very beginning, you want to make sure that your application is telling your full story, whatever that may be, knowing also that there may be pieces of you that are left out. And that's okay, right? You're a very multifaceted person. And sometimes that means you have to leave a few things out of your application, but you want to make sure that all these major pieces are sharing your story, highlighting the things that you find important to you or that have shaped you in a certain way, or that help us understand who you may be in our future community. So when you're thinking about your application, make sure you're reflecting on yourself and thinking about sharing all of those important pieces of yourself in this process. The second thing that I want to recommend is that you show and tell. You want to make sure that you are giving examples that support or provide evidence of what you're saying. So just like Jocelyn was saying with the activity section and those descriptions, right? Anytime you can add in numbers or proper nouns or specifics to your application, that can help us understand you and the situation a little bit better. It helps ground us in who you are and what you're talking about. Often we have a tendency to speak in kind of big philosophical moments, right? Or quotes, or think kind of big picture about things. And this is really your chance to dive deep, to get very specific about a specific example or time or story that you want to share with us. And obviously there will still be moments of telling, right? You can't just write a descriptive essay and not reflect upon yourself at all, or not write that reflective kind of moment or, anything like that. So it's a little bit of both, but we definitely encourage you to show and tell throughout this process. The third thing that I want to mention is that you can share the things you want to tell us, but don't feel like you have to share everything. I think often students feel like they have to tell us all of these stories about their lives and things that have happened to you. And while you are welcome to share things that have happened to you or that you're passionate about, you're interested in, if you do not feel comfortable sharing that with a complete stranger, I understand, and you do not need to share all pieces of yourself. The other thing just to remember is that there'll be other people that are also helping speak on your behalf and advocating for you in the form of your counselors and teachers. If you feel that some situations in your life may be better handled by the adults in your life that may be mentioning certain things, you're welcome to have them included. You're welcome to have no one include anything. If you feel like it is too personal and you do not want to share. We want to get to know you. We want to get to know you on your terms in ways that you feel comfortable and safe in sharing that information. The fourth thing is that optional is truly optional. So we've talked about a few things that are optional in our process. We say they're optional. It means that if you want to do those things, you can do those things. If you do not submit those things, you are not at a disadvantage. So if you say, I didn't have time to do an interview, am I gonna, not be admitted because of that? No, not doing things that are optional are not a reason that we wouldn't admit a student. They are things that are there for you, that if you want to add those pieces to your application, if you're excited about the things that we talked about that are optional, they're there for you to share more of your story. But they are no means required, they are not recommended, they are truly optional in this process. And finally, to close out our takeaways before we move to Q&A, you control your application and your narrative in this process. So again, like I mentioned before, if there are things you want to share, share them. If there are things you want to edit out of your application, edit them out of your application. Definitely take advice from us, from family, from teachers about, the grammar of your essay and overall kind of ideas. When it comes down to it, you are in control. You're in the driver's seat of how you want to share your story, what you want to share, and when you want to tell it. Jocelyn, anything else you want to add to sort of these takeaways before you open it up to questions?
Yeah, Elena, I feel like you really covered everything well. And I just want to kind of just underscore that last piece about you as students, in the driver's seat and kind of taking that ownership over your college process. I recognize that this can feel very overwhelming as you are trying to kind of navigate this next really important chapter of your life. And you're doing so this year in the context of a broader kind of situation that is going on in terms of this global pandemic and how that's affected the past couple of years of your high school. And so really just want to empower you and encourage you all to, if you've got questions, take advantage of, like Elena had mentioned, utilize the resources that are available to you, whether that is, trusted teachers, counselors, advisors, mentors, parents or guardians, family members, or other, siblings who have gone through this process before. I definitely want to encourage you all to feel empowered to reach out to them and utilize them as support resources, but also to at the end of the day, know that you're going to be okay, and you making this decision, whichever college you end up going to is going to be lucky to have you, not just the reverse. So I really wanted to, encourage you all who are going through this process to, as you're beginning, as this is starting to get more and more real, as we're now on August 18th and the Common App and the Coalition App are now open. And, I just want to give you guys a huge boost of encouragement as you're really beginning this process.
Thanks, Jocelyn. So before we move to Q&A, I keep, really getting excited for Q&A. I do want to put up some more contact information. So if you do leave here with additional questions or concerns, or just want to get our advice again, feel free to reach out to us by phone or by email. You can also find more information on our website. We'll continue to have additional kind of webinars and informational series throughout this fall of this year. So if there's other things that you're interested in, know that we may be offering additional things this fall, and then we post it to our website as they get confirmed. With that, it is time for Q&A. So I see that a bunch of you have been putting questions into the Q&A already. Thanks for doing that. Anyone else, if you have questions about anything we've talked about, the application process, best ways to share your story, please feel free to put those things into Q&A. And Jocelyn and I will get to as many as we can today. We also are joined by a couple of our colleagues behind the scenes. Thank you to all of you guys. We're helping answering some additional questions too. With that, I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everything. So the first question, and Jocelyn, this may be a good one for you. What would an interview entail? So what does it look like? What sorts of questions are we asking, or other schools may be asking? Just kind of describe that interview process.
Yeah, so I have a variety of experiences with the admissions interviews. As a prospective student who did those interviews a long time ago, I did alumni interviews for my alma mater, and I kind of advised students in my previous role prior to working at WashU as a high school counselor. So I just want to underscore that every interview is going to be different. It's going to depend on the colleges that you're applying to, which is why it's important to, as you're doing your research, to check and see what the kind of specifications are for each college on your list. But in terms of our process at WashU, ours are a little bit more kind of casual and conversational. We have two sets of interviews. You could do an interview with a current student, in which case you are it gives you another opportunity to just check in with a current student and ask questions of what WashU is like as a student. So if you've done some research and you've been going to these panels and presentations and sessions online, and you would like the opportunity to connect, interviews this year for WashU are virtual. That is also a change. In previous years, pre-COVID, a lot of institutions had in-person interviews. Most institutions, I imagine, are having them being virtual. For sure, WashU is virtual, so I can speak to our process here. And then you could also take a different route if you're interested in connecting with an alum. You could request an AP interview. They're both on our landing page on our website. It also could be more conversational, but that would be with an alum, so somebody who's already graduated from WashU. And maybe if you've got more questions about, what is life like after WashU, or how WashU prepared them for their career that they're in, maybe it might be good for you to request an AP interview versus a current student interview. But really, they're just informal opportunities for you to connect with another person from our community at WashU, and for them to be able to get to know you better and kind of advocate for you in your application.
Yeah, and we often think about those kind of interviews as an additional letter of recommendation from someone in our community, right? So while they are informal, they're also evaluative for us. So whoever is doing your interview will fill out a short form, give us a little bit of sense of the conversation, and that goes into your application file. That gives us, again, an additional kind of point of reference, what you talked about, what you were interested in, who you are. So that is another great way to get to know you in this process. I'm going to go ahead and drop a link into our Visit and Engage with Us page. I can see a question coming in about how do I sign up for interviews? You can find the schedule on that link that I just put into chat. Again, you can sign up for the ones that are done by current students now. We have those posted. They'll run through the fall and into early winter. We're offering them a couple of times a week, a couple of days a week. And so you can find a time that works best for you and your schedule. The AP interviews are first come, first serve. And they are kind of offered to students based on when you submit your application. So if you know you want to have an interview right now, you can go ahead and sign up for one through us with our current students. If you want to wait and see if you get that alumni interview, you totally can. I just recommend submitting your application earlier rather than later. You don't have to submit it today, but because of that first come, first serve based on availability, the earlier a student submits that application, usually by end of September, October, may have more likelihood of getting that AP or alumni interview. That is our other option for students. All right. Next question, does WashU look at demonstrated interest? I'm happy to start and just talk about demonstrated interest writ large. What does it mean? Kind of what do colleges mean when they say demonstrated interest? And it kind of means one of two things. One, demonstrated interest you can think about as just ways that you are demonstrating interest in a college, ways that you are exploring, ways you are learning about an institution. So it can be attending a webinar like tonight's webinar. It can be coming to campus if you feel comfortable and are able to come to campus. It can be meeting with an individual, admissions officer, if they're coming to your high school virtually or in person, whatever it is, going to a college fair, making a phone call. It is so many ways that you can kind of express your interest and or just learn more about that school. The second part of demonstrated interest that I think is often what students are asking is, do we track demonstrated interest? Is it part of our admissions process? Are we considering it? Are we using it in the application review? As of right now, WashU does consider demonstrated interest in our process. And that's one of the ways that we just understand you. We want to understand that you know the community that we have at WashU, that you're interested or excited about it. And looking at all of the ways that you may have demonstrated interest is one thing that we can use. We do not require demonstrated interest in this process. So we have students every year that have no demonstrated interest, right, in their applications. We don't know exactly what events they've attended or how they engaged with us that are still admitted to the university. So it is something that we can consider, but it is never going to be kind of a make or break for students in this process. Jocelyn, anything you want to add to that?
No, yeah, I was just going to say it's really one part of our holistic admission review process. So again, it's not make or break.
Yeah, and I definitely think there's not a certain number of things you should attend in order to make yourself a more competitive applicant. Attend the things or do the programs that you are finding interesting, that you are learning. For some students, that's one event. For some, that's a lot. But more does not necessarily mean better. So I mean that fully. A student that attends 45 information sessions is not any more competitive than a student that attends one. So when it comes to events, programs, fairs, things like that, attend what you're excited about or what you're interested in learning about. A question about decision plans. So we didn't talk too much about decision plans, but just to kind of give a brief overview, we offer 3 decision plans here at WashU in addition to a QuestBridge College Match Round. 2 of those are binding agreements that students can choose from outside of QuestBridge. So ED1, Early Decision 1, or Early Decision 2, ED2, and then a regular decision application. So just like everything else we talked about, that you have the choice of what you want to do and what you want to submit and how you want to share your story. You also have the ability to choose which of the application decision rounds is best for you and your family. The specific question is, can you apply ED1 as an international student? And the answer is yes, you can. So long answer for, for a short answer, but just wanted to give some of that background information too. Jocelyn, I'm going to pass this next one to you. What traits does WashU look for in students?
Great question. So again, back to the name and story piece. You all as students sharing your story and your application is really important to us. In terms of what we're looking for as an institution, we're looking for students who are going to be really engaged and collaborative community members here at WashU. If you've attended some of our programming and you've heard from some of our current students, I think you have a sense of kind of the community that we have here at WashU, and that's so important to us in terms of our community. And so we are looking for students who are going to kind of engage and contribute with our community. There's no like specific way. Yeah, we're looking for students to contribute to a lot of the diverse, clubs and organizations and academic programs that we have here at WashU. We've got a butter churning club that it's great to have students who come on campus that are interested in joining that. We've got a film and media studies department that it's great to have students that are interested in wanting to get involved in that. And so generally, I think the spirit and the ethos of our community, though, is very collaborative, encouraging, supportive, curious, innovative. What else am I missing, Elena?
I think you hit on the main ones. I think also just academically excited. That intellectual curiosity and passion is kind of at the ground level for all of our students. I think you're excited about going to class. You're excited about having conversations with your peers about what you're learning and sharing in kind of those excitement about research and education and kind of new ideas. So I think that is something that our students also share. And then I think the thing that I love the most is I think their students are also just nice and kind. That ties into kind of being supportive and collaborative, like Jocelyn, you were saying. But I think when it comes down to it, our students just care about each other. They're friendly, they're kind. Some of that I think is because we're in the Midwest, and so we have sort of the Midwestern charm. But the fact is, 65% of our students come from more than 500 miles away. So most of our students don't actually come from the Midwest. So that means that students are attracted to WashU for that kindness, for that friendly and nice collaborative environment, even if you yourself are not from kind of a state that maybe is known for that. I don't even know what that would be, but right, we kind of have everybody come together into this really great community of people that care very deeply about one another and about making communities better for people around them. So that's a lot of things. And I think in terms of the application process, we're also looking obviously at those things that are for you and other things that we didn't mention. So it is pretty impossible for one person to always be all of those things that we listed, every single adjective. And so while those are things that our students share kind of at kind of the core, there are many other things that our students are bringing in terms of diversity of experience, identity, traits, and those things are obviously celebrated and welcomed on our campus too. Thinking about the personal statement and essay, couple people are wondering if we have any advice for coming up with a topic or kind of starting that process. Jocelyn, any way to just like get started? Any recommendations if they're not quite sure where to start?
Yeah, I think I want to underscore the point that you made on the slide, Elena, that there's no right or perfect topic. You could really write about anything. We understand as institutions that you all are, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. Like, you are not expected to have created the cure for cancer in your spare time, right? And then writing about that in your personal essay. We really just want to know kind of what makes you tick, who like what has shaped you into the person that you are today. What kind of character strengths are core to who you are as a person? What do you value? I always encourage students to start out with thinking about what are 3 to 5 adjectives that either they would use to describe themselves, or if it's hard to think about, describing yourself in adjective ways, and that kind of may feel a little bit uncomfortable for students, that's okay. Maybe ask a friend or a family member to identify some of your best personality and character strengths, and then think to the specific times in your life where you've exemplified those character strengths, especially if you've been able to exemplify them through your actions. And then kind of narrowing down into telling us that story of how you have exemplified those character strengths, where you're able to then show versus tell us that you are a compassionate, caring, and kind of introspective person. And for example, if those were 3 character strengths that you kind of identified of yourself, you can kind of tell us a story of a time that you exemplified those traits, and like really then elaborate on what the impact is from that trait. I will also say it's helpful that if you think about kind of what are those most impactful moments for you, and some of those moments might have happened earlier on in your life, like, childhood or adolescence, maybe even as early as freshman or sophomore year of high school. It's also helpful to kind of show how you've evolved and grown and changed and applied these strengths to your life since those times. So if you're telling us about an impactful moment that happened to you as a middle schooler, then maybe also kind of juxtapose that with something that has happened more recently, so we can see that growth and that application of that character strengths in action. Those are kind of some tips that I give to students in terms of kind of where to start. I'll also say that it can be really daunting to just look at a blank piece of paper and kind of see like that blank screen, and then kind of it can maybe give some anxiety. You may want to start looking at the prompts for either the Common App or the Coalition app, and then maybe like tell your story out loud and use that to transcribe and like put those words that you said, like you recorded a voice memo or a video, and kind of put those words onto the page and then do revisions from there. I think an important thing to realize is that your first thing that you write probably shouldn't be the final version that you submit. So just giving yourself enough time to work and revise and just kind of go through this process and like a lower stakes. So kind of maybe set lower, set scaffolded goals, like so maybe outline or first draft. Know that you don't have to come up with your topic and then a nice polished draft in like one sitting.
Yeah, and if you truly have nowhere to start, just look at the prompts that are already given to you on the Common and Coalition application. They list about 6 or 7, and then there's also a topic of your choice. So if you're like, I have no idea where to start, and you don't know your adjectives at all yet, just start with just jotting down some ideas that those prompts kind of prompt to you, and then go from there. That can be a really just great place to start. A question about kind of activities. How would students be able to demonstrate leadership in positions other than like specific organizations? And I think that brings up a good question about just what does leadership look like? It can obviously be a position. So you can be a president or a vice president or a secretary of a club. But there are other ways to demonstrate leadership, and that can be just being a committed member of a club, right? We need people that are also just showing up and bringing them full selves to those activities and those involvements. It may also be showing initiative. So maybe you started a club or started an organization, or maybe you just started something within that organization, right? That you changed something within that. So I think leadership can be many different things. It doesn't just need to be a position that you've held. So I think that's something also good to know. A question about what people are calling the quote COVID essay, end quote. Do we have any opinions or thoughts on that? So Jocelyn, maybe do you want to kind of tackle this, and I can follow up if I have anything else?
Sure. And so due to the COVID-19 pandemic, last year, Common App and Coalition App included a optional short response essay that you can share how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted you. In terms of what you might include, it's really up to you how to use that space and kind of, again, reflect on how the pandemic has impacted your day-to-day life, and whether or not you would like to share that story in that space. It's not required. It's completely optional. If you or a family member contracted COVID and that was a really significant experience for you and really impacted how you were able to learn and study, and potentially impacted grades, it could be helpful to share that context with the admissions committees for the colleges that you're applying to. If your plan to go be in the Olympics, this is an extreme example, perhaps you were about to be recruited, and then that COVID pandemic kind of changed that activity for you. You want to share that context of you were really involved in that activity prior to COVID, but COVID changed it for you. I think just one kind of misconception here is that in this essay, like, you have to kind of turn lemons into lemonade. You don't have to. If it was a terrible experience, you can just let us know that it was a terrible experience. You don't have to try and like identify ways that you try to make the best of it. You don't have to have started a nonprofit. It's great if you did, that's cool, but it's not an expectation in terms of our office as an admission committee. And I know, I imagine that different offices probably feel the same. And then you also don't have to have it as a structured, 3-paragraph response. Maybe you want to write some bullet points. Maybe you just want to have a couple sentences. Maybe you do want to have a paragraph structured. It's really, again, your opportunity to use that space if you, and in whichever way that you choose. And perhaps it might be helpful to consult your counselor or a teacher, an advisor, a parent, a mentor, if you're kind of determining if you want to use that space, to lean on your resources to kind of help you make that decision.
Yeah, and again, it's completely optional. So like Jocelyn said, if there's something that you want to share there, you can. Don't feel like you have to come up with something in that space. It truly is optional. And just another reminder too, that your teachers and counselors will be submitting information. So they often cover a lot of sort of that my school went virtual information. So if that's kind of the only thing you put there, you don't necessarily need to put that there. Again, you can, it doesn't hurt your application in any way, but know that your counselors also fill out information about how things were impacted at the school level. So may have impacted kind of how your classes were graded or where your classes were conducted. Things like that are usually covered by your counselor or your teachers. I see a question about kind of our essays and do we have a supplemental essay? And what's funny is we just had a long conversation about this morning in our office. So this year, our supplemental essay sections are optional for students that want to be considered for our Signature Scholar programs. Within our academic questions of our college section, we do have a short answer, short essay that asks you about what you're interested in studying and why. It is not a why wash you question. It is truly a why do you want to study what you've indicated you want to study. So you should use that space to talk about which of the divisions you've mentioned or indicated as your interest, or which of the kind of academic area of interest or majors you've indicated an interest in. If you are truly undecided, that is okay. You can be undecided and write about why you're undecided, or if there is still something that piques your interest on campus in terms of academics, you can write that there. So I really want to highlight that it's not just your space to write like why you love WashU. Well, we hope you love WashU. We really are looking for you to answer that question. Why do you study? Why do you want to study what you want to study? Jocelyn, do you want to talk a little bit about kind of how we use that section and kind of, other sorts of considerations from that short answer?
Sure. I just want to quickly add that it is 200 words or less is what you have in terms of like the word count for that. And in terms of how we are reviewing these responses, they're helpful to us in terms of identifying students who could be good candidates for our divisional scholarships. So those are the scholarships that you do not have to submit an additional application for. Our merit-based Signature Scholars programs, those are the ones that are now in the optional writing supplement section, as Elena had mentioned. Those do require that separate completion of those essay questions to be considered for those opportunities. But in terms of our divisional scholarships, if you complete the regular part of the common application, that response will be kind of help us determine good candidates for those divisional scholarships. Did I get that right, Elena?
Yep. And I see another question about kind of the timeline. So you can submit your main portion of the Common Application and not have submitted your writing supplement yet. That is a feature that Common App allows. So if you are done and ready with your application, but not quite done with your optional writing supplement for those Signature Scholar applications, you can go ahead and submit your Common App and feel done and good with it, and then work on those Signature Scholar applications that are part of the optional writing supplement. The question is specifically that I see about kind of applying ED1, but then our Signature Scholarship optional supplemental section is not due until January 4th. That is correct. All of our scholarships, what we reviewed for the Signature Scholar programs, until after January 4th, since it is open to ED1, ED2, and regular decision students. But you can submit your application for ED1 with everything else that you need, and then go back and write that supplemental essay section if you're not ready with it when you submit your application. A question from somebody about kind of diversity on campus, and I'd like to expand a little bit into kind of how we view diversity from all aspects. So it's, definitely racial, ethnic, cultural, religious, political, but everything kind of in our process, and what kind of that looks like on campus. Jocelyn, I don't know if you want to start, I'll finish about kind of just how we handle, making a diverse class in our process.
Yeah, so in terms of, I always give this advice to students. If any institution tells you that their institution is completely perfect, has everything all figured out, everything is rainbows and unicorns and just the perfect ideal place, I always say, that might be a red flag, just given the context of the society and this country and the world that we live in today. Like, we know that it's not perfect. We know that there is room for growth and work needs to be done. And so I like to share that at WashU, we are interested and we are committed and value doing the work. And so we are looking for students from diverse backgrounds, diverse identities, diverse, perspectives to be on our campus, to be in communication and community with each other, to really kind of build a strong community where everyone's voice is heard and valued. And it doesn't matter if people have different identities or different perspectives, but people feel included, people feel heard, people feel respected. And that is something that is really important and core to who we are as an institution at WashU.
Yeah, and I think just to name a couple of spaces on campus or kind of organizations, our Center for Diversity and Inclusion does a lot of work with kind of programs and events and trainings for students from diverse backgrounds and other groups that want to learn, right, about kind of how to be better, more inclusive people. We also have the Office for Student Success, which oversees our Deneb STARS program, which is a cohort-based program for students that are first generation and or low income from low income backgrounds. So those are just two spaces. There are a lot of other kind of student groups and organizations for students to join once they're on campus. But I agree, Jocelyn, that in our process, we really like to see that students are coming from diverse backgrounds, that they're bringing those things to our campus, that they're excited about sharing or celebrating one another in their differences. And that's something that I've always loved about WashU, is that people celebrate each other, they show up for each other, they ask questions of one another, and they're just there to support each other. So lots of formal spaces and informal ways that our campus really celebrates diversity and inclusion. Is there a dress code for interviews? There is not a dress code for interviews. I love that question. There is not. Be yourself, be casual. I mean, wear something that you would feel comfortable wearing to talk to a stranger, right? But you do not need to dress up formally. If you feel like you want to dress up and be formal, do that, but it is not a requirement of our process at all. We usually look like this, right? If I was going to be the one doing the interview, your student interviewer will be wearing jeans and a t-shirt, right? So we're casual, so you can be casual if that's what you prefer as kind of an interview.
And these interviews are all happening virtually at the moment. So, as long as you're casual from the Zoom, shoulders up, that is great. Unless you would need to you don't want to have any Zoom faux pas, which we have seen, on the news. We want to avoid that at all costs. So, just keep that in mind too.
Yeah, but if you want to wear like pajamas on the bottom, you do you, right? Like the great part about virtual is you can wear kind of anything that you want and just keep your shoulders down, right? So that's a nice thing about it. But feel free to whatever makes you feel comfortable. In terms of interviews, should they be scheduled before or after applications are submitted? So it's a great question, and it varies depending on which interview you are doing. The ones that you can sign up through our office, which you can find on our Visit and Engage with Us page, can be done before you submit your application. So we actually started doing those this summer for rising seniors. So I see that somebody said that they already had one. So there you go. You don't have to submit your application before doing those. For the ones that are conducted by alumni, those are matched after you've submitted your application. So that's why I mentioned earlier to make sure if you want to do those alumni interviews, that you submit your application sooner rather than later, because those are done after the application is submitted. Also, just to reiterate or to note, if we haven't mentioned already, you are only able to do one interview in our process. And Jocelyn probably said that when she was talking about interviews, so I apologize. But make sure if you're somebody that, wants to do an interview, that you're just signing up for one. So if you'll go ahead and have one with a current student, and then you do hear from an alumni later, you can go ahead and decline that. If for some reason that wasn't kind of, marked in our queries and reports that we run and everything like that. So we asked just to make sure that we have more availability for all interested students, that you limit yourself to one of these interviews. Is the 90-second video only on the WashU application portal? Yes, as far as I know, right, that is where you submit it. So once you've submitted your application to WashU, you will get a login to what we call the WashU Pathway. It is your online portal. In addition to submitting the 90-second video, it's also where you see your application checklist. So all the pieces of the application that we've received, because obviously in addition to what you're submitting, the common application or coalition application, we're also receiving letters of recommendation on your behalf. We're receiving your official transcript from your counselor and other pieces of the application. So make sure that you are signing in to your WashU pathway after you apply to WashU. And that is also where you will submit that 90-second video. Is there any main difference between the Common and Coalition application? Jocelyn, any differences?
So in terms of how we as an admission office review the applications, no, there's no difference in terms of how we review a common application versus a coalition application versus a QuestBridge application. We're reviewing them equally. In terms of what those different platforms are, I think maybe it might be helpful to explain a little bit. And so the Common App, when I worked at a high school, our school kind of used the Common App as the main platform. There are, I think, over 900 institutions on the Common App. WashU is one of them. You have a space to apply to 20 schools up to that on that platform. You complete one centralized portion on like the main like Common App is like a section that once you finish that, mostly the bulk of your work is done. All colleges are going to see that same information, and then they might have some additional questions that they'll put in their member section. So in the college specific question, you might have to indicate some additional information. But once you finish that main common portion, typically the bulk of your work is done for the Common App. The Coalition app is part of a broader coalition for college access, affordability, and success. And WashU is proud to be one of the 140, 150 schools that participate in the coalition. It was designed to specifically support students from low income or historically underrepresented backgrounds in higher education, focusing on that affordability and success. And so we're happy to participate with the coalition, and students can apply to us through the Coalition app as well. And then QuestBridge is a national college scholarship program that seeks to connect high achieving students from lower income backgrounds. If you would like to get more information about that opportunity, I would say check out their website. They do have an application deadline coming up next month. And so if you're interested in learning more about that opportunity, check out their website for more information and see if you qualify.
And most of our students will choose between the Coalition or the Common application. So really do some research, see which one seems more like a better fit for you. If you like just the look and feel of one or the other, then you can go with that. Really kind of up to you. Talk to your counselors about it too. They have some good advice and kind of feelings about different platforms and things. So make sure that you're speaking with your mentors too.
Yeah, you just need to do one.
Yes, just do one, just one application. If you are a student applying through QuestBridge, you can use your QuestBridge application for us. You don't have to resubmit a different application. So one application to WashU, no preference between which application is used. Truly no preference. We've seen them all. We know all of them. We know how to read them. So there's no preference on our half. It's really kind of on what makes more sense to you. A quick question about neurodivergence, which I think is a great question, and kind of what tools or kind of opportunities exist for students that may have the kind of different experiences and things like that. I think just generally, again, it's one of those things that we learn about in your application, right? If you're learning differently and how you're learning, something we can take into account. On our campus, we have both the Learning Center, which helps provide resources for students of all backgrounds and experiences, as well as the Disability Center, which can also help students in kind of different ways who have kind of specific disabilities on campus. So lots of support there for students. And again, just another sort of piece of diversity that is taken into account when we're looking at our full applicant pool. We have about 1 minute left. So I would like to ask Jocelyn, if you have any just last pieces of advice for students as they're starting or continuing this application process.
Yeah, this is hard. I want to say so many things, but I guess my one piece of advice that I would give is to really just try and show us your authentic self. Don't try and think about, okay, like what does WashU want and how do I kind of fit into that? We really just want to know who you are as a person. We want to get to know you by both name and story. We want to learn about what your values are, what has shaped you into the person you are today, and how you've been involved in the kind of community, your family, more about your identity. Whatever you want to share with us, we will be really grateful to the work that you have put into your application. I know that it takes a lot of time and dedication, and it can be really stressful to try and navigate putting your kind of life and educational career thus far into this puzzle pieces of your college application. So just know that we appreciate and value all of the work that you are doing in this process. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. I know that we didn't get a chance to get to all of the questions that were asked today, but let us know if we can be a support in this process. We as admission officers really do want to advocate for you, and getting to know you by both name and story is really a key for us to do that.
Thanks, Jocelyn, and thank you so much to everyone that joined us today to learn more about sharing your name and story through our application process. I went ahead and dropped the link for our final session of this week. Ask Us Anything that's being hosted tomorrow. So if you didn't get questions answered today that you want to get answered, or maybe your questions weren't quite on our topic and so we didn't get to them right, feel free to drop into that session tomorrow. Go ahead and register so you can get that Zoom link. I do want to thank our colleagues behind the scenes who helped answer all of your questions and help facilitate questions for us today. That's always really helpful, and hopefully most of you got most of your questions answered. If you do have any more questions, I also put our email there in chat, so feel free to reach out to us. Like Jocelyn said, we love to answer questions. We love to be a resource. It's why we do what we do. So don't be a stranger. Reach out if anything is on your mind. With that, we hope you have a lovely evening. We hope that you have a lovely week, and that you reach out again if you have questions. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.